My name is Stuart Wells. I'm Head of Business Development for Alliance Manchester Business School at the University of Manchester. I am also the Client Director for our LCP3 programme that we run in partnership with BAE Systems. LCP3 stands for Leading Complex Projects, Programmes and Portfolios. And today I want to talk through our journey with BAE in terms of the programme itself, really starting pre-programme in terms of how it was developed, the business case, talk through why we were chosen as the provider, and then really look at how we developed the programme and the architecture itself, and then finally look at the impact. I think impact has been mentioned quite a lot at this conference, so I really want to talk through that. So in terms of who's involved in LCP3, University of Manchester, we are the lead provider. We work in partnership with Curtin University in Australia and Professor Fran Ackerman. The programme itself is global, so we deliver on 4 continents. We deliver at Harvard University, we deliver in Knowledge Village in Dubai, at the University of Manchester itself, and at Macquarie University, who we're good friends with in Sydney. And I think it's worth pointing out that BAE Systems were very, very keen when developing this programme that it had a campus feel. They did not want it being delivered in hotels. It was very much about getting delegates out and back into the university environment. So in terms of BAE Systems, for those who aren't aware of the organisation, so BAE Systems are a global organisation, multi-billion-dollar turnover. They have a presence in 40 different countries, and they have over 82,500 staff. Extremely successful, working in defence and in intelligence. So fantastic organisation. So why would BAE Systems need to work with a university on an executive education programme? So the challenge. So BAE Systems was going through a huge amount of complexity and change. They're very much operating in that VUCA environment that we've heard all about. And they were finding that projects were becoming much more complex, much more challenging because of budget cuts. So these are real headlines from the Financial Times. BAE Systems' major customer in the UK is the Ministry of Defence. In the UK, we have gone through, as many of you know, a real period of austerity. So BAE were being challenged in terms of budget cuts from their main customers, which meant they had to become more efficient in terms of delivering projects. We've also just previously heard from the other speaker about the war on talent. BAE found that there was a real war in terms of bringing people in. So their intention was to try and retain and keep their best talent by developing them. So what they did was they developed a business case. And the business case was they wanted to develop a global population of experienced practitioners, their own practitioners. What they wanted to do was develop a program which could make learning stick. They wanted to make sure that it enhanced improvement, and it had to be built on research. And then the ultimate goal and the ultimate aim in the business case was it had to help them in their capability to A, win more work, and then B, effectively manage that work. So that's what we were set in terms of designing. So very different, this program, from a lot of executive education programs, because I work on and see a lot of RFPs. BAE were very, very certain in that they wanted the program to be informed by research. And we put forward our team from Alliance Manchester Business School. We're quite different in that we focus on major complex programs. So we deliver exec ed, but we also undertake research around it with a team led by Professor Graham Winch. The other side of it was we had to deliver on a global scale. So any provider who was delivering this program needed to be able to deliver on 4 different continents. If you didn't meet that criteria, you weren't invited. There were 5 people or 5 organisations invited to pitch, and we were successful in the end in terms of the programme. So what we did with BAE in terms of developing the programme, we'll get there in the end, we worked with them to develop a number of competencies. So we work hand in hand with BAE. We have a programme team absolutely dedicated full-time to this programme. And it was important that we actually looked at these competencies, because at the same time that BAE launched the project management programme, they also launched an RFP for a business winning programme. And what we did, we looked at the competencies for both the business winning programme and the project management programme, and saw that actually you're really trying to educate very similar populations, because the business winning teams work on massive projects to win multi-million-dollar orders. So what we recommended to BAE was, rather than procure 2 programs, why don't you actually bring both of the programs together? So you create a business winning and a project and program management program. So a very, very different approach. What we've seen is we've got huge buy-in from those populations. We've seen massive impact in terms of teams that were working in silos are now working together, and we're seeing people from the organisation switching departments. So project management are going to business winning and vice versa. So the competencies that we identified were built right across the residential elements of the programme. So they're addressed in each day of the programme itself. The programme itself, as I said, is global. So we deliver the programme over 3 years, 32 people in each cohort, 12 different cohorts. In terms of the learning, we started the programme off and we thought we were going to deliver to the UK, we were going to deliver to a UK population, we were going to go to the States, and we just deliver to a US population. We kicked the programme off in Manchester, and what we found was we actually mixed that first population up because we thought, we'll pilot this programme, we'll get some feedback, and then we can adapt it. What we saw was really revolutionary in terms of knowledge sharing, in terms of networking, right across different countries, different business units, new ideas coming out. So going back to BAE, we transformed the way we'd approach the programme because we thought, what's the point in delivering just to business units in the US? Let's mix it up. It actually costs more in terms of travel costs, of flying people from the UK to the US, but in terms of business impact, we've seen it's much greater, and we've continued that approach right throughout the programme. So we deliver 7 cohorts in the UK, 3 in the US, 1 cohort in Dubai, which looks after the Saudi market, and 1 cohort in Sydney. So the philosophy itself is aimed about developing reflective leaders. And in terms of really getting people thinking about how they react. So when we talked about the first session yesterday on the brain, when Andy was talking about reflex and retraining people, that's what BAE are trying to do in terms of behaviours. Whereas people are making decisions on complex projects, they need to step back and think about their decisions before taking that final decision. And that's what really we're helping BAE with. What we've brought into the programme is our Manchester method. So this is a method based on learning by doing. We are the home of action learning, where Professor Reg Revens actually started with us. So I disagree with Dave Ulrich from yesterday when he said action learning is dead. We found that there's a real major benefit in terms of still using this tool to help support delegates in their learning journey, but also taking the learning back into projects through using reflective practice papers. So the programme is designed to explore techniques really of best practice, lessons of experience. It's designed to bring together groups so they can share their experiences throughout BAE systems, and really it's designed to look at generating value from projects. So what we undertake is a reflective practice process so that people undertake assignments which are submitted for academic purposes, but very much around real projects that BAE systems are undertaking. What we were keen to do, though, is avoid going down the route of similar programs that have been established. So in the UK, we have a program called Prince 2, which I started my career on. We were keen to avoid this approach in terms of the tools and the process and the procedures that are mandatory. It had to be more flexible. So in terms of the approach itself, we very much took a blended learning approach to this. The residential masterclasses were absolutely key. When we started the programme, there wasn't a business winning element to it, and we had, it was a 7-day programme in total. We learnt our lessons in that approach. So we had 3 days on the first module, 4 days on the second. What we found that people were coming into the programme, but they were almost preoccupied with work because they thought, I'm going to do 3 days here, and then I'm back in the office, say, on a Thursday. By changing the programme to a 10-day programme, so taking the full weeks out, it meant more time in terms of people committing to it, but actually the impact was far greater because people relaxed, and people really started bonding with the cohorts and were much more committed, knowing that they were going to be out the office all week. In terms of the approach and the uniqueness to it, the case study really underpins this programme. So we developed a bespoke case study for BAE. It was developed by 4 of our academic team, 2 of the BAE team. It was a huge piece of work. It took us 12 months to develop. The reason we took this approach was we wanted a real-life BAE Systems case study, something that really people could relate to. And this case study was around a complex project. It was around about working in virtual teams across different cultures and different nationalities. How did this help us? What we found was when we went into the classroom on day one and we launched the case study, so the case study runs throughout the programme, it brought us instant credibility with the delegates, because they could see, actually, the University of Manchester have done their homework on BAE, they understand it, it's in BAE language, so straight away, people could relate to it, and we got buy-in. So this is the LCP3 journey in terms of the architecture. We start the programme with a pre-assessment, so we ask each delegate to go through a 360 project leadership appraisal with their teams and their line managers. We undertake a Hogan assessment, so people can understand themselves better and understand their derailers. There's then an online phase, which actually is far more important than we realised, because the people coming on the programme might not have undertaken any exec education or any education at all for the last 10 years. So we introduced the pre-phase with the introductions to get people thinking about concepts. The first session is based around project leadership competencies, so the fundamentals of project leadership. And that's building on leading the self and the team into the Hogan assessment, building on engaging stakeholders and complexity and risk. The programme itself is always introduced by a senior member of BAE Systems staff, normally a board member. That gets the buy-in again from the delegates. Then the delegates go away and for 6 months concentrate on reflective practice papers. So 3,000-word assignment, working back those concepts into their jobs, into their day-to-day roles. We also use action learning. A lesson learned from action learning on this programme was when we kicked it off, we actually facilitate the action learning sets ourselves. It didn't work for us. Because what we found was people thought, Manchester are delivering this, I'm not really sure I have to turn up. So the attendance rate wasn't great. We switched it to say, well, actually, you self-facilitate. You're responsible for this. We found that the peer-to-peer interaction really helped, and people bought into it a lot further. We then move on to Unit 2. So after 6 months, they come back and undertake another 5-day module. Within this, we work through the project life cycle. And this is where we introduced the develop and winning a programme. So starting before your traditional project management programme, start with our business case. We then work through the project life cycle itself in terms of project execution, but then we go back and we revisit. So we go back to how do you win new business from existing customers. Then we look at reflection. So actually, how can we improve the processes that we've got in terms of BAE Systems? Then finally, we have a 2-month basically post-assessment piece. So once again, we repeat that 360 feedback so we can see actually what have we achieved in terms of those leadership competencies, how have we improved. Throughout the programme, delegates are expected to collect a portfolio of evidence. And what they have to do at the end of the programme is present to a panel, a BAE Systems internal panel. So they present all their Hogan assessments, all their reflective practice papers, and they state, what have I achieved for myself as an individual leader? What have I achieved for the organisation? Quite a tough panel. Not everyone passes. They might pass the academic element, not necessarily the panel. So in terms of flexibility, this is an accredited programme. So when we pitched for the work, we were asked to provide non-accredited and credit-bearing approach. And what we did was we said, okay, we can provide credits. So each module's worth 15 credits. We then took a very, very different flexible approach where they said, we'd quite like a PG cert, but we don't want to commit to everyone going through it. So we offered to come back and do another reflective practice paper where people could get 30 credits. We found about 15% of each cohort take up this option, and they get a postgraduate certificate on the back if they can continue with that option. The programme itself is accredited by the Association for Project Management. Probably more important though, it was accredited also by the PMI. That really helped in terms of buy-in with the 3 cohorts in the United States who felt actually this is really important if it's accredited by the PMI. So what's come out of the programme? What impact have we seen? So in terms of the impact, BAE Systems have developed something called the Future Project Leader. Really a framework that they expect all their staff to achieve if they're moving into a project leadership role. This wasn't part of the LCP3 programme, but it's something we worked hand in hand with BAE Systems on, And this is rolled out throughout all their project management programs, right throughout the organisation, regardless of whether we deliver it or not. In terms of further impact, what we've seen is the program's transformed the way the organisations go about undertaking projects. So the whole stage gate review process for the entire organisation has been completely redeveloped on the back of LCP3, which is a really innovative approach for BAE Systems. Through the reflective practice paper approach, we're tracking all impact on a delegate-by-delegate basis. So at the end of the programme, we can measure from an organisational point of view and a financial point of view what impact has this programme had. And what we've seen, just one example, one delegate in their reflective practice paper identified by using a technique we call a pre-mortem on a project, they saved the organisation £1 million. So we're seeing real impact on this programme. I think Dave Ulrich mentioned yesterday the future of learning is about including your customers in your programmes. This is what we're starting to see with this programme. So BAE, on the next cohort, have invited the Ministry of Defence to come on the programme. They believe in it that strongly. So for us, we believe this is a real success story. It's a programme that we're immensely proud of. We were very proud to be nominated for the Chairman's Award, which took place a few months ago. We finished top in our category for shared services, and we finished third overall. So we're very proud of the programme, but I'll let colleagues from BAE Systems have the final word in terms of their experiences. If we can play the video.
The genesis of LCP3 was the realisation by the company that our business environment is becoming more difficult, and as a consequence our projects are becoming more complex.
What this course has allowed people to do is get away from the business, start to understand some frameworks to help them manage complexity.
They seem ignited by it, they seem absolutely switched on by it. And it's not easy, it's 300 hours worth of formal study. So you don't just go along and get a certificate for attendance. This is really serious stuff.
One of the things that I think I've been doing since LCP3 is putting a bit more structure around my thinking.
LCP3 had a number of techniques to review my own behaviours, reflect on those, and now I've looked at that, how I'm interacting with the team, who I'm interacting with.
There's such a diverse group of people. To have people from Australia, from the Middle East, from the UK, from the US, has really opened my eyes to the wideness of what BAE does.
My leadership behaviours have changed, and I think it's about the comfort that I have in embracing uncertainty and ambiguity.
I've taken a slightly different approach now. I'm looking at obstacles as opportunities, and I'm solving more problems as a result.
I've actually learned to be more inclusive as well as understand myself as an inclusive leader.
Many of them said to me, I wish I'd done this years ago. And indeed, I wish we'd done it years ago, but we're doing it now, we're doing it in this style.
Just a world-class effort. I'm very proud of them, and I think this is going to make a real difference in improving operational excellence going forward.
Thank you.